so find a way to.
Hello beautiful souls, my name is Monica, and today's video is titled, Are you living from your ego or are you living from your soul? The topic of the ego has come up a lot for me recently. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I've also been seeing it referenced in a lot of people's posts and things that I read as well. So when we typically think about the ego, I feel like a lot of people will think about someone who brags a lot, who isn't necessarily considered humble, someone who thinks they're God's gift to humanity or what have you, people who are like, I'm so awesome, I'm so hot, I'm so this and that, someone who's like a narcissist, in that kind of realm. And I think that can be part of it, but I think that's a very limited kind of definition. I think it goes much more beyond that. And I've had to sit and think about, well, what is the ego, and how do I know if I'm living in it or if I'm living from my heart? And there's a lot I can say about the ego. I'm going to try to just spew some things off as I think of them. The ego is very much about separation. It's not about unity. The heart, the soul, is about unity. The ego is very competitive. It wants to be better than everybody else. It wants to be the strongest. It wants to be the fastest. It wants to be the most good looking. The ego is very set in time. It's very obsessed with time. So I notice a lot of times I'll be busy being busy and I'll feel like I'm not doing enough, or I'll be checking things off my list and it still doesn't feel like enough. So the ego is also about lack. It's about not enough. And the reason that the ego is so obsessed with time, even though time doesn't really exist, it's a man-made construct, is because the ego knows that its time is limited. I believe that when we're not incarnated on the 3D Earth, I don't know about other planets, but when we're hanging out in Source, that we don't have an ego. I feel like that's more of a human thing, like an Earth thing. And so the ego feels like it has to do a lot in a short amount of time, and no matter how much it doesn't feel like it's enough, because again, it knows that its time is limited. When we die, our ego dies as well. However, our soul is eternal, it's timeless, it goes on forever. So even after our physical body dies, our soul will continue, whether it's hanging out in Source again until it's ready to incarnate somewhere else, or where have you. No one ever really truly dies. And of course, that is my personal belief. I know everyone has their own beliefs, and that's fine, so I'm just sharing my personal view. You can also think of the ego as being like an overprotective parent. Someone who really cares about you, who just wants you to be happy, to be safe, and all of those good things, everything that a parent would want for their child. But instead of supporting you in the things that you want to do and you love, they kind of pick a lot of things that you do apart, especially if they think it's unsafe. Like if you're someone who likes to do rock climbing, or you like to do skydiving or something like that, the overprotective parent will maybe lecture you and try to talk you out of doing it for your own safety, because they just want you to survive, basically. And that's the ego too. The ego is all about survival. It wants to keep us safe. That's its primary goal. And I was talking to a friend the other day who reminded me that we're born egoless. And at a certain point in time, as we're growing up, we develop an ego. And when she said this, it totally made sense to me. It's our biggest source of survival in every human. It's just innate. And when we're kids, we have to learn about things that can hurt us, and we don't understand the concept of death just yet. So that's why every kid has to learn that fire is hot, the stove is hot, do not touch it. And I know there's always that debate of whether you tell your kids not to do it or you just let them do it at some point, because they're going to keep trying because they don't understand what any of it means yet. So you just kind of have to let them get burned once. And that has definitely been my experience as a kid. I've been burned by a stove once and never touched it again. And this was even after my mom had told me multiple times not to do it. I was just like, well, I don't understand why. It's red, it's bright, I just want to touch it. And that's why, kids aren't usually allowed to cross the street until they learn how to cross the street by looking for cars, because as kids we don't necessarily look for those things. We don't think to look for them. We would just be chasing a butterfly and just go straight into the middle of the road, not thinking about cars or traffic or anything like that. So it does take a while for the ego to develop. And going back to what I said about the ego being separate, it's very about duality, such as I'm black, so you're different from me. I'm white, you're different from me. I'm a woman, you're different. I'm a man, you're different. You're an animal, you're different. It doesn't see the unity of everything being connected. It just sees separation and acts on that. And also, the ego is very much about fear, false evidence appearing real. It lives in fear, it survives through fear, and if we make a mistake or we're embarrassed or we get hurt, whether it be physically or emotionally, if we do something again that has hurt us in the past, then the ego will be like, hey, you shouldn't do that again. Remember, you failed, you were embarrassed, you didn't succeed, and you don't want to get hurt, so why are you going to try? If like you ask out someone and they say no and you feel rejected, your ego may stop you from pursuing someone else and asking them out, because as soon as you want to go and do it, the ego's like, wait, you got rejected last time, that hurt, that was painful, let's not do that again, let's just avoid it, let's just sit on this comfortable couch and not go anywhere or do anything, because we know right here this is the safe, comfortable zone. Alright, so now we've talked a lot about the ego, let's talk about the soul. The soul is quite the opposite in a lot of aspects. I feel like it's not as complex. It's not all about thinking. It's not just about analyzing. It's not just about science. It's more of intuition, because it's your heart, your soul, your body. Like intuition, it's about feelings and emotions. It's about unity. It's recognizing that we are all one, that everything is connected. It's all about love, not fear. It's more brave than the ego and the head, for sure. It likes to take risks because with that intuition, it knows that the risks are going to be worth the reward in the end. And again, it is timeless. It goes on forever. It's very wise, very old. And it's, of course, of a higher vibration. Love and fear are on two opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to the chart for consciousness. The problem that I've seen in society is that almost everything in society is very ego-based. Even starting with just school. School is very competitive. You're taught to want to get better grades than everyone else. You want to get into a better college than everybody else. You want to dress better than everybody else. It's implanted so much in the ego, especially since it's all about thinking. It's all about the head. It's all about the mind. It's not about the heart, the soul, the body. What do we want? How do we feel? How do we express ourselves? So, and that's another thing, is that the heart, the soul is all about expression, expressing your true essence of your soul, expressing your authentic truth. The mind, the ego is about doing, the heart, the soul is about being. And it knows that it's enough. It knows that we're enough. It's about abundance, not lack. And it's about creativity. And also with society, for a long time, I'm guessing it's probably still kind of this way now. I know back when I was younger, people were applauded for succeeding in math and science and those sort of things, physics and everything. And people who were more into the arts, whether it was painting, photography, acting, anything that they could create and express themselves that didn't limit them to this kind of structured box like math and science does, were not applauded as much. It was just like, oh, you're creative? Well, I'm analytical, I'm a scientist, I'm this, I'm that. And it was seen as better in a lot of ways. I believe advertisers and marketing uses both our ego and our heart to try to sell us things. There's some things that are like, let's take Axe body spray for instance. It's like, for guys, if you buy this product, you're going to smell amazing and you're going to attract all these beautiful women. And they show these commercials with all these women like hanging on this guy who sprays on this spray. And that's very ego based. It's like, you need this because you're not enough. You have to have this in order to be happy. And then they also use the heart and the soul to sell to people for even some of the smallest things. Like, I don't know, I've seen some pretty, I can't think of anything specific offhand, but I've seen a lot of commercials that will tug at your heartstrings about family, about children, about animals. And it's like, even if it's just something like they're trying to sell batteries or something very like simple like that. Some commercials, especially for me being an empath, I swear I could like cry. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so sad, or that's so touching, that's so sweet. But fortunately, I still don't usually get sucked into buying something unless it's something I really feel like I need. I know advertisements are just so dramatized to like get a reaction out of people. Oh, and that's what something I forgot is the ego is about reaction. The heart is about responding and holding space. So lately, I've been kind of playing this game with myself to see when I'm reacting out of ego and when I'm responding from the heart, from the soul. And what I found is I actually live in my ego a lot. And it's exhausting. It feels like just being in my head all day long. There's just all of these millions of thoughts. They're just swimming around and I'm just caught up in all of it. And I feel overwhelmed. I feel stressed out. I feel like I don't have enough time to do anything. I feel in lack. And I can feel all of the energy in my head. And I'm so in my head that I'm not even aware of my body, where my entire soul lives, where my heart is. And I'll think about, like, if I text someone and they don't text back, I realize that, you know, I will feel very hurt about it. And then I have to stop and go, wait, is my ego hurt or is it my heart or my soul that's hurt? And then, of course, I realize it's my ego. My ego is like, well, I'm an awesome person. Why wouldn't they want to talk to me? Like, we used to be friends. Like, what did I do wrong? And then my soul and my heart is just like, you didn't do anything wrong. This person may be having a hard time themselves. They may be very busy. Or maybe the universe is kind of pushing them out of your life because they're not meant to be in your life. And it's actually a good thing for me because then it's kind of cleared my path to keep going for whatever I want to do, whatever I'm meant for. Another example could be maybe someone feels like they have a crush on someone and they feel like they have to date them or they have to sleep with them because they have a crush on them. And they might stop and think, well, do I really have a crush on them? Or is it that I really just feel like I really want connection and that I relate to them, and the only way that I can have connection with them is if I physically sleep with them or if I date them? So that's where like lust, you know, the ego comes in, and true love, where the heart comes in. And sometimes, especially in the beginning of starting to date, it can be very difficult to distinguish between those two perspectives. And when I respond to anyone, it's easier when I'm doing it over text or like online through DMs or something like an email where I can write because I can take my time and think. But if I'm responding to someone in person or on the phone or something like that, I sometimes feel rushed to come up with an answer or to say something, especially if I feel offended by something someone says. Instead of stopping to think about maybe where they're coming from, my ego just likes to react and just spew off something and be like very, very defensive about it. And I've had to become more aware of that. And I like to pause now. I try to remember to take a breath before I respond to somebody so I don't just have that knee-jerk reaction of just reacting to whatever they said whenever I feel triggered. And that's something that can be easier said than done, but it does take practice. And the biggest thing is just becoming aware. I was so unaware of how much I was living from my ego, how much I still am at times, that I have to really make an intention to be conscious about where I'm living from, where am I coming from? Because it does make a huge difference. Now, one of the last things I want to talk about is in the spiritual community, there is this term called ego death that I've heard a lot ever since my spiritual awakening a few years ago. And I want to say that that term doesn't really resonate with me because I don't necessarily agree that we need to kill a part of ourselves in order to be whole, worthy, or to be spiritual, or to ascend, or to be enlightened. That to me doesn't make sense. I feel like we were given egos for a reason. They serve a purpose. And like I said, the main purpose is survival. If you've ever had someone jump out and scare you when you're not expecting it, your automatic reaction is usually something like you might scream, or you might cover yourself, or you might duck, or you just look around. Some people have been known to punch people without thinking. That is your ego trying to survive. It's like before you can even consciously think about what just happened and process it, your ego, your survival mechanism has already kicked in. It's also like if you're driving and you're on the same route all the time, you know exactly where you're going. And a lot of times when we're driving, if we've driven this road before, we're on autopilot. So our subconscious is kind of taken over to drive and we're just in our head thinking or doing something. But as soon as someone steps in front of your vehicle, or if something's in the road, or if a dog is running across, you tend to be able to just react. You're able to react in that instance and just stop as quickly as possible. And you do it before you even realize you're doing it. It's just so automatic. It's crazy. So yeah, without an ego, I don't think we would last very long, Without it, I don't think we'd really have that urgency of feeling like I need to survive. We would just be like, oh, I can do anything and I won't get hurt. Or I'm going to be just fine. And that can work up to a certain extent. But there's a million ways to die, being human. It's kind of crazy we make it as long as we do. I'm always impressed by that, and I'm very grateful for it. So for me, I don't feel this need to have an ego death and to live egoless for the rest of my life. What I have found is what I would like is for my ego and for my soul to not be enemies and to not disagree all the time. They don't have to be best friends, but they have to have a partnership and get along. Because for far too long, my ego has been in the driver's seat. It has dictated what I've done or what I don't do, mostly based out of fear, false evidence appearing real, trying to survive, trying never to get hurt, never really living or thriving. And my soul, my heart has been in the backseat, and it's trying to talk to the ego, to me, saying, hey, actually, you want this thing over there, but if you just take this shortcut or you take this route, we can get to it quicker. We can get to it easier. But the ego is constantly shouting at the heart and the soul saying, hey, shut up, I know what I'm doing. No, that's not right. I'm going to do it this way instead. And so that voice from my heart, from my intuition, from my soul gets dimmer and dimmer, and it's harder to listen to and it's harder to follow. It just becomes kind of a muted backseat passenger. And so the ego likes to do things the hard way. It likes to go through construction, and it likes to get stuck in traffic behind a car accident or whatever have you, or take the long about way to get something. For example, like I said, all of us, we really just want love. We want to be seen. We want to feel heard. We want to feel connected. And our ego thinks that the only way to do that is this roundabout way. Like trying to manipulate people so that they don't leave, or trying to be someone that we're not in order to fit in and to feel like we're a part of something. And the heart, the soul saying, no, we don't need to go that way. We don't need to do something to be accepted. We just need to be ourselves, be authentically and truthfully ourselves, and express that to the world. Because that is what we came down here to do. We didn't come here to be like everyone else. We came here to stand out. And that's what's so beautiful, is every soul is so unique. And it's a shame when we don't feel like we can be ourselves and we don't let those people get close to us. Because if we were ourselves, we would naturally attract people who are on the same vibration, who understand us, who love us and accept us for what we are instead of what we aren't. So what I am working on doing right now in my life is switching roles. I'm having my soul sit in the driver's seat and take the wheel, and the ego is going in the back. It's going to be a back passenger. It's going to be that overprotective parent. And as I'm journeying through life, when I'm on my path, when I know what I want and I'm going for it, when I'm using my intuition as my compass, as my guide, and my ego's back there like, oh, I don't know about this, man. It didn't work out before. Or you got hurt last time, or what if it doesn't work out? What if you fail? What if you fall flat on your face and you're embarrassed? We don't want that. My soul's going to look back and be like, hey, it's okay. I understand where you're coming from. I hear you, but I'm still going to do it anyway. And then eventually I want my ego to get to the point of being like, okay, cool. All right, we'll do this. I trust you. So when the heart and the mind, the ego and the soul come together in unity, work together, I think it is a very beautiful thing. I don't think the ego needs to die. I think it, like I said, serves a purpose, needs to be here, but it doesn't need to always be in control. If I see a tree is about to fall on me, I will let my ego temporarily step in and guide me to move out of the way, to get to safety as much as possible. So emergency situations, it gets to take the lead. And so the best advice I guess I can give about how to live more from your soul, from your heart versus your ego, is to set the intention to become more conscious of it. Whenever you're making decisions, it can be big or small. Even if it's, what do I want to eat? Go with what you feel you want to eat, what you feel you want to wear, and don't overanalyze it. Like, well, if I wear this, then maybe I'll get more compliments, or if I eat this, I'm gonna be hungry and I'm gonna starve, but at least I'll look good for everyone else or something. Make sure to continuously check in with yourself every day, all day. How do I feel? How am I doing? What's going on inside? And also what's helped me is to bring awareness, physical awareness to my body. Because if you're in your head most of the time, it's really difficult to be aware of your body, the sensations that are going on. So just check into your energy. You can bring awareness through your body, like to your hands, to your feet. You can start with your feet, move up to your legs, to your hips, to your back, all of that kind of stuff. One of the easiest way I've found, and I've mentioned this in another video, is just placing my hands over my heart. That helps to bring a lot of energy into my heart space. And it helps me to slow down and to breathe and to become more grounded. Definitely grounding as well, putting your bare feet on the earth, meditating, doing yoga. I feel like that really puts you into your body as well, because especially when you're in uncomfortable poses, it brings a lot of awareness to your body, and then more into your heart and soul versus just all the energy up here, all chaotic, not really doing a whole lot. It's not really being helpful when we're stuck in our head all the time and feel like we're drowning in our thoughts. Alright, that is all I have for this video for today. I hope something from what I said maybe helps some of you really think about where you're living from. Are you living out of fear? Are you living out of love? Are you reacting? Are you responding? Are you present? Or are you living in the future or stuck in the past? And this can be so unconscious. It's a pattern that can go on for so long. I'm 30 and I'm just realizing this, and this has been my pattern for a long time. I definitely feel like as kids, we are so much from the heart. We're so much closer to source because it's so fresh for us. But over time, we get a lot of these beliefs implanted and these ideas about how the world works, and we've been hurt, and so we try to hide away and protect ourselves, and we don't even realize that we're in the ego mind living from fear, and we just have to stop, make space to become aware of it. I hope you guys have a beautiful day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you, as always, in the next video. Bye, everyone.